Beatlemania, you were at the epicentre of that.
Yeah, well, not only that, as part of our act, we had a sort of a corny part of it where we did sort of impressions of various people. We did a blackout, we did a big drum roll, and now all the lights are off. Now, ladies and gentlemen, who have you all been waiting for? The Beatles. And we all put wigs on, and the lights came up. So there was this incredible sound. I never heard anything like it, followed by the biggest, oh, God, it's just them. I mean, we did experience that 66 times. Something I'll never forget, you know.
The end of 1963, that at Christmas, that my brothers and I were given Beatles wigs for Christmas. It can't have been the main. I hope it wasn't our main Christmas present, because they weren't even real wigs. They were made out of plastic, and they cut into your. You know, if you moved your head slightly, you'd feel your ear being sort of pierced.
Yeah.
We were aware of the Beatles, and I think everyone was aware of the Beatles. It was, and as everyone went on about their hair, and even though it now looks, you know, almost bizarrely short, I remember the wigs. I don't have any other distinct memory of the Beatles. That kind of merchandising hadn't been done before, or not in such a big way. And though Brian Epstein was a very good manager and an honest man, he completely misjudged that, and he sold, I don't think I put it into the book because it was too complicated, but basically he sold the rights to the merchandising for virtually nothing.
The whole merchandising thing has never been reported properly, and it's the stick with that people most use to beat Brian about the head with, and people who do that beating don't really understand. They've read certain things in certain books which were in a sense slanted against Brian as well, and I'm not attacking or defending anybody in these books, but what I am going to do is report on paper all the things that my deep research has found, and the readers can make up their own mind about whether it was a catastrophic blunder or not. In my opinion, it wasn't, but it may, with certain tellings, be seen to be so with the benefit of hindsight and the evolution of an industry in the last 50 years that simply wasn't in place at the time.
Right. He created that industry, really.
The Beatles did. I mean, the merchandising industry before the Beatles was bigger in America than in the UK. It was virtually non-existent in the UK or anywhere else. In America, there had been the Davy Crockett phenomenon and Elvis to a degree. But in fact, the sums of money I read, Brian lost them $100 million. I've seen the accounts of Celtape, and there was nothing like that amount of money being generated then. And besides which, it wasn't Brian who signed the deal. It was a man called David Jacobs, who was his lawyer in London. And it seemed to be a good deal. And I was in the Musicians Hall of Fame. I saw the agreement that Chet Atkins had with Gretsch so they could name a guitar after him. And it was 5%.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this was the standard kind of deal in those days. The business as it evolved was very different and slanted much more heavily in favor of the artists, and you can understand why. But you don't go straight to that point.
So in late 1963, the Beatles had an American writer called Michael Brown going around with them, who ultimately wrote a book called Love Me Do, the first really good book on the Beatles, published in 64. And Michael Brown, seeing that John wrote these poems, said, if you like, I could show these to a publisher.
Fan club movement, namely Miss Anne Collingham, Bettina Rose and Frida Kelly. Right, that's good. We know very well what an awful lot of people think about the Beatles records. We are now going to find out what the Beatles think about other people's. And let's get on with record number 1. Well, we have a Liverpool group called The Chants on that one. I Could Write a Book. John Lennon. It's the... Is it?
I like good muffle, it's fabulous. It's the second record of it, but that's the gear, it's it. That's the sound, boy.
That's the call and it's a call.
Yeah, I think it's great too. We were talking to the Chancellor the other night, and we said to him, what's your new record like? He said, it's powerful, lovely. So it's powerful.
Thank you, Ringo Starr.
I think it's great, much better than the first one. And I'll buy it, folks.
You will.
Not even.
George Harrison's looking rather moody about that, George.
Yeah, it's great. Definitely it's a hit, if it gets enough plugs and everything.
All right, well, let's vote that record, remembering what you said if it gets enough plugs. Hit or a miss for The Chance, and I Could Write a Book.
Hey,
How about that? All 4. A hit for that one. Well, they're very generous. Perhaps it was because it was a Liverpool group, but it was a good record, and we'll see if they're as generous about this, the second record, which is not from Liverpool. Elvis Presley and the Jordanaires, and that one, Kiss Me Quick, Paul McCartney.
Boom. Yeah, the only thing I don't like about Elvis, for these days, I know this is an old track of his pop rock that feels.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I don't like about it now is the songs. I love his voice, and I used to love all the records like Blue Suede Shoes and Heartbreak Hotel, lovely. But I don't like the songs now. And they're not. Kiss Me Quick, it sounds like Blackpool on a sunny day. I was going to say. I said it before. I didn't like it at all. No, it's last 2 years he's going down on Nick.
George Harrison.
Well, I must admit, I didn't like it very much, not at all. It's an old track, and I think if it's seen as they're releasing old stuff, if they release something like My Baby Left Me, it'll be in at number 1, because Elvis is definitely, still still popular. It's just the songs, a lot of rubbish. But Elvis is great, the songs, right? Not for me.
So, John Lennon.
Well, I think it'll be a hit because it's Elvis, like people say that about ours, but I don't think it'll be very big. I like those hats, though. It Kiss Me Quick on it.
Well, now, we seem to have a vote on this one. Kiss Me Quick by Mr. Elvis Presley, remembering that Elvis Presley has enormous following. Kiss Me Quick. Hits or a miss, Jerry. Frankly, I would say the best thing that Elvis Presley could do would be make a record with the Beatles. But anyway, we'll get on to the next one. The Swinging Blue Jeans and Hippie Hippie Shake. Ringo.
I liked it. You know, I thought it was good, but it's not as good as the original by Chandler Romero.
Yeah.
It's still swings, and it should sell. I hope it does anyway.
George.
I think it could possibly be a hit, because I know for a fact that the Hippie Shakes, a very popular song around here, we used to do it ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
I know a lot of groups around here do this song, and you know, I was expecting somebody to come up with a new version of it. Well, I think it could possibly be a hit. I like the way the Blue Jeans do it, but I still prefer Chan Romero's version.
Thank you. John Lennon.
Yeah, I think it'll be a hit, because they sort of nearly made it with the last one, and it's better, and it's better without that banjo. And I like Bill Harry's version as well. I think it'd be you know, small hit, at least.
Well, we may have a miss yet, but we'll see if it's going to be this one. Did you have a happy birthday? George Harrison.
Well, I had a happy birthday, yeah. But, I mean, if I'd have heard the record first, I think it would have put me off. You know, I definitely don't like it at all. It's not for me, and I didn't get the flowers either that he sent me.
No. It still remains. We'll get on. Let's see what happens with the next. We have 3 Coventry schoolgirls called the Orchids on Love Hit Me. John Lennon.
But it's just a big cog, a pinch. Well, you know, it sounds to it. If it had come out before the Crystals and the Ronettes, it would have been great. But I mean, they've even got the, you know, what is it? Castanets, tambourine is what it's called. You know, it's quite nice, but it's sort of, you know, it's the British version, you know, which, although the song was original, I think, but it sounds, you know, it can sound right.
Hey.
It sounds great for an English record, though. You know, because about a year ago, somebody brought this out and said, listen to this record. I don't think you would have believed that it was an English one. So it's marvellous for sound and things. And I think it's great. I like it.
Ringo.
It's good, you know, I wouldn't buy it. It may sell a few, but not for me.
George Harrison.
I thought it was quite nice. I mean, I like the idea of the British record sort of being on the way to, you know, Chica, all this. I like the American stuff, like the Crystals. I mean, even though it is a pinch, you know, I'd rather they pinched the Crystals than carried on doing the stuff they've been doing.
Well, let's just see now, gentlemen. The Orchids and Love Hit Me. Do you say hit or do you say miss? And they say that it will be up. Which in fact is most unfortunate, because we do have sitting in the audience, there's 3 young ladies called the Orchids. Stand up, young ladies. There they are. Now.
Sorry, didn't mean it! Change it now! Change it to fit! Change it! I buy two! I didn't know you were here. Nobody told me.
Let's see. John says it's a lousy trick.
Before the Beatles set out to conquer Paris and New York, I caught up with them on the road in Doncaster, in the industrial north of England. And while a crowd of 2,000 teenagers screamed ecstatically inside the theatre, I forced my way through the stage door and talked with the Beatles in their dressing room. And there they were, long hair, elastic-sided boots, the lot.
George Harrison, how different is your life now as a member of the Beatles to what it was, say, even 4 years ago?
Well, everything's completely changed. We don't have a private life anymore, and we are public property now. Not that we mind.
You don't mind being such very public property with no private time at all?
Well, you get accustomed to it, and, after a while you just take it for granted, and you just do everything automatically, like signing autographs and waving at people.
What about home life with your own family? Do you ever get any these days?
Yeah, occasionally, say once every fortnight, we manage to get home, and if we're not appearing in our hometown, then it's usually okay. They don't expect us to be there, and it's quite quiet. But
has changed your status with the family much?
Not really. It makes them more popular, and people sort of after a while spot my parents anyway. They're like, or we're same with the others. They'll say there's George's dad, or whereas before they wouldn't know him from Adam. But they're just still the same as before.
What about the wealth that comes with this kind of success? Has that made a great deal of difference to the way you live and the way your family live?
No, it hasn't made, not so far, it hasn't made any difference, except for holidays and things like that. We can just get the money out of the bank and go wherever we want.
And you're one of the reputed deep thinkers of this group. How do you see it as a peak in your life? What happens to you after this is over?
Well, I suppose we'll stay doing this sort of stuff for a couple of years, and whether there were... naturally we won't be able to stay at this level, but we should have another 2 years at least, I think.
And then what happens to George Harrison then?
I don't know. I'll know by the time that comes along. Probably have a little business or something like that.
You don't want to go on in the profession?
Probably, yeah. I'd like to make records, with other artists. I don't mean perform, I mean as a producer.
The technical side.
But I don't know, you can't really tell at this stage.
You occasionally look round there, and when you hear noises like the noise outside this theatre at Doncaster, the continuous screaming of thousands and thousands of boys and girls for you, it doesn't sort of shake you up a little inside?
No, it makes you feel good. The idea of people, so keen to see us. It's flattering. And after a while, you get used to the noise all the while, and so you just carry on as if it wasn't there. You just get immune to things like
that. You weren't too keen on school. What made you interested in the singing bit?
Well, I don't, do all that much singing. I do one number a night. But I've always been interested in music, and the drums particularly, I had a guitar, and I didn't seem to take to that. I had a violin and everything, but... I always wanted drums, and I used to just bang on tin cans at first and things like that. And then I bought my mother and father bought me a 10-quid kit for Christmas, just a little drum and a cymbal. And it was an old one with about a 50-inch bass drum, which used to hide me anyway, being small.
Ringo Starr, it's been suggested that boys coming from the particular area that you come from, if you hadn't found an interest in music, might have found it much more difficult to get out and make a go of life. Would you comment on this?
I think it's true, when I was 16 and that, I used to walk on the road, with the rest of the lads, and we'd have all our draped coats on, and, we never got to the stage of beating up old women, though. Just, we've had a few knocks and that with other rival gangs sort of thing. But then I got the drums, and the bloke next door played a guitar, and I got a job.
Teddy boy!
And we started playing together. Another bloke in work made a bass out of an old tea chest, you know, in them days. This was about 58, mind you. And we played together, and then we started playing on dances and things, you know, and we took an interest in it. And we stopped going, you know, out of sort of hanging around corners every night.
Do people regard yourself as leaders of this particular group?
No, we're not leaders of any sort of a group. The thing is, people always say, well, you started great trends and things, but in actual fact, all that we've done is gone along with the trends. And if, in going along with it, we sort of encouraged other people to go along with a couple of our ideas, you know, all very well, but we haven't tried consciously to start anything like a trend, you know.
You were very much younger when this enormous success started, and you're riding the summit of it now. Do you see it as a peak, a mountain, interfering with the flow of your life?
I don't really know what you mean by very much younger. It was only a year ago.
But you've been working since 58, haven't you?
Well, yeah, not working, you know. I mean, strictly speaking, we've been out of work since 58, and we've been doing this as a hobby, because we've only been doing it as semi-pros. I left school and went right into it, and we were only sort of picking up a few quid a week, you know. It really wasn't work.
You alone of the four Beatles seem to have had a greater incentive to go on and do other things, because in the educational side of it, you've gone further than the other lads had.
No, well, yeah, not really, though. It just so happens that I don't know, I happen to get a few GCEs. I don't think that makes me any cleverer than the others. Maybe the others were... I know John's not soft at all, you know. Maybe he was a bit lazy at school, but I was as well, you know. But I don't think that's made me feel as though I ought to go on and do better things.
What do you think you might have done if this particular thing hadn't come up?
Well, at the time, I was thinking of going to a teacher's training college. I don't know whether it would have been any good at all, but it just seemed sort of a natural thing to do at the time.
And what would you like to come out of this particular experience?
I mean, we never used to think of it all flopping, but people always, lots of people ask, say, once a week, what will you do when it flops? So you start thinking about it. But I think if it all does flop and things, I think the main thing is now that as we've got ourselves a bit of security, we don't really have to worry, at the moment anyway, what we're going to do after it. So we don't.
None of you are really concerned with going on in this field as a profession?
Yeah, of course we are. I think all of us really, if it all suddenly flopped, then we would do something in this profession. But what we mean by Ringo and George's answers, we mean that we don't really want to do like the conventional answer is, I'd like to do ballads and films and straight acting, you know, which is so corny because half the people who say that can't act or ballad or film, you know. So we probably wouldn't want to do that unless we thought we could do it. We're having a Bachelor film next year, and if we find that any of us can act, then possibly, you know, when it finishes, say one out of us may become actors, but we haven't got any great hopes of being actors at the moment.
And in the meantime, you simply haven't got time with the crowded lives you're living to take time out for tuition in these other fields, have you?
Yeah, but I mean, who wants tuition? I don't, you know, and I'm sure if I had got an ordinary job, I would never have wanted tuition. It's not that I don't want extra tuition, particularly, but I'm sorry. What I meant to say about the tuition is that I don't particularly want extra tuition. I mean, I feel that having gone to grammar school and sort of gone through GCE and A-level, I've had a reasonable amount of tuition. I think if I hadn't have had that, then maybe I would have wanted a bit more. But I've done my spell at school and sort of thing, and I don't particularly fancy doing it as a hobby. You know, being tuited, as the verb goes.
No, I meant really, say, drama coaching, voice.
Oh, I see, that sort of thing. No, because lots of professional musicians have said to us that, for instance, as far as music's concerned, if we all learnt to read music, then they are sure that we'd lose a lot of sort of natural approach to music.
And the immediacy of your lyrics.
Yeah, that may be true, you know.
What about the lyrics?
Lyrics, as far as we're concerned, are just things that we might say. The main point is that they've got to be feasible. We don't like saying things like, yeah, she's a movie queen, baby, or things like that, because they don't happen to come into our lives. But we will say things like, you know, don't go away because I might miss you. because I'm sure that, everybody's felt that at some time or another. There's things that can happen we'll write about, but things that happen in other people's lives, in great glamorous lives, Cadillacs and movie queens and Hollywood and things. I'm sure we'd never write into our lyrics because we couldn't believe it. We've got to believe our lyrics.
Yeah. And Paul, your lyrics are not general for everybody. They're mainly for the group about your age level.
No, I wouldn't say that at all. I'd say that they are very general, I'd say, because I'm sure that from 13 to 90, well, I mean, even before 13, obviously, but let's say from 13 to 90, anybody could say, I love you, and don't go away from me, and things like that. I mean, because the very common sentiments that we write about,
Well, what's been the greatest influence in your life up to date, up to this experience with the Beatles?
Nell. And Neil, that's our road manager.
What kind of influence do he have on you?
None, really.
Is no influence better than some influence?
Well, apart from that, an apple a day keeps the docker away.
It said, John Lennon, that you have the most goon-type humour of the four Beatles.
Who said that?
I think I read it in one of the newspaper reports.
You know what the newspapers are like, huh?
No, what are they like?
Wrong.
It's not going wrong. I want to get a nice personality bit.
I haven't got a nice personality.
What kind of personality would you say you have?
Very nice.
Beatlemania was well underway in the UK.
We were offered a piece by a London bureau of this phenomenon, so we put it on the air one night.
That night was December 10th, 1963.
And meanwhile, the fan mail keeps rolling in, and so does the money. They have sold 2.5 million records.
Okay, there was a telecast, CBS Cronkite, in the evening, and Alexander Kendrick was a CBS reporter in England, and he did a piece about this fab gear group called the Beatles and how popular they were and how the kids were going absolutely nuts. And so I saw it and thought that's interesting and thought nothing more of it. And about 2 days later, I got a letter from a listener, Marsha Albert, 15 years old, Sligo Junior High School, and she said, I saw this on television the other night, and if these guys are so great, why can't we hear their music here? And I said, well, there's nothing we won't do for our listeners at WWDC. So let's see if we can get the record. And I checked with Joe Wilson, who was in charge of promotion and client relations and stuff. And she said, I'll check with Tony Linney at BOAC, which is now British Airways, and see if he can't get us a copy.
He'd been invited by Jane's parents to go and live. He had his own room at the Ushers' house in Wimpole Street. They were a particularly interesting family, which is, I think, why one of the reasons Paul so landed on his feet. Jane Asher's an attractive, nice person, and her parents were particularly interesting. Her father was a doctor, Dr. Richard Asher. He would be famous in a way, regardless of his connection, because in 1951 he'd identified and named Munchausen's syndrome.
Oh.
So he's sort of part of history in medical history. He also wrote very funny articles for the British Medical Journal, which I really enjoyed reading, and I wasn't expecting to understand even any article in the BMJ. One of them was called "Why Are Medical Journals So Dull?" They printed it. So anyway, within this environment, Paul really blossomed. The other Beatles were kind of either just married or having fun, going to nightclubs, and he rather loved the intelligent cultural conversations. There were also two other brothers Jane had. They played word games, and they would sort of have proper sit-down dinners and argue about sort of intellectual things. Paul remembered one argument between Dr. Asher and Peter, who was Paul's age, on when the tomato was first introduced to England. So they have very specific historical discussions. Yeah. At the same time, Margaret Asher, Jane's mother, was a music teacher, and she had actually taught George Martin, I think it was the oboe at the Royal College of Music, and she taught Paul to play the recorder. He could already play piano and guitar, and he played it on Fool on the Hill. But they also, encouraged him to read widely, so he read Jung and Aldous Huxley and went to Pinter plays and listened to Stockhausen. And so he just kind of broadened his horizons. And at the same time, it was very fruitful time for him composing. These amazing songs would just kind of pour out of him. There was a music room in the basement, and so when Margaret Asher wasn't using it, he would sit at the piano there, and he composed. Just in that, there should be a plaque at Wimpole Street.
We had hand-carried by a stewardess this Parlophone record from England of I Want to Hold Your Hand. We put it on the turntable in the music library, and we listened to it. And everybody said, hey, what do you think, And I got to, in all honesty, say, I thought, that's a very good record. That is a good record. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to make it in the United States. Johnny Hallyday was the #1 singer in France and very popular all over Europe. Johnny had not been able to get arrested in the United States. He had released records here. He had made appearances. So who could say if this were going to make it here? But I asked Marsha to come in and introduce it, since she was the one who started the whole thing by writing that letter. She came in, and I wrote out a little introduction for her. And we were on Good Morning America Thursday morning, and she said, I still have that thing that you wrote out for me, and I had handwritten it out on the back of a traffic report. Accident at 2nd and T Northeast, 2 vehicles involved, And so she read the introduction.
That's our theme for this morning, from us to you. The Beatles are here. The Beatles are here. I'll be singing you a song or two, and you'll also be hearing from Susan Morn, Joe Brown and the Brothers, Kenny Lynch, the Alan Elsdon Jazz Band with Jeannie Lamb. Beautiful, gentlemen, beautiful. The Kenny Salmon 7 will be playing for you, and on top of this we have a bunch of discs that we'll be spinning. So we start with the Beatles. Let's have a quick roll call. John? Yeah! George? Paul? And Rees? Ringo! Oh, well, off you go then. Fellas, do you feel like singing a chorus with me?
Yes, Ralph, yes.
There's enthusiasm for you. I'll give you a rough idea how it goes. It starts off with me going like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, my God.
What a phony bunch of laughter that was. Hey, what about messing up that ending after all the rehearsal? We did it at least once.
But you forgot the words, didn't you, Ralph?
At the beginning.
What
a beautiful speech.
Beatle period, as you might say, before you were so famous. I mean, are you going to buy him a present and him, you, vice versa?
I've got him attached and I've got Ringo a trackpad. But apart from that, no, we don't buy each other presents, because it's a bit ridiculous, you know. No, it's a bit mad, you know, buying each other presents.
Well,
we've got each other, haven't we? Get home to our parents if we can. If they're there.
Now, what about the new year? I believe there's a trip to America in store. Is that right?
Yes, we're going in January. February. I don't know why we're going, actually, but we are going. February. Then we'll come back and they say, have you been to America? We'll say, we've been to America, haven't we? He's acting now.
Yes, and then they'll ask what you thought about America, but I can't ask you that now, because you haven't been yet.
No, I haven't been, because we are going.
Oh, screaming, that's reminded me, yes. You say, why do they scream?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. If somebody scores a goal, there's a louder cheer from all the people. So if we shake our heads, it's the equivalent of scoring a goal, and that's when the screams are loudest. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I do understand. You do that when they scream. Tremendously lively and full of zing on the stage. How difficult is it for you to keep up this zest?
Well, we do the zest we can.
they're playing the song in heavy rotation, the British copy of the single. Apparently, Carroll James makes a dub of it and sends it to some DJ buddies of his in St. Louis and Chicago. But the key thing is Capitol is finding out that this record is getting airplay. So what do? They have their attorney, Walter Hofer, call up WWDC and say, quit playing the record. It's not coming out till mid-January. Carroll James says, are you nuts? This is a hit record. And they think, maybe we should rethink this. And so they tell their employees, we're going to rush this record out and basically forget about your Christmas season if you're working at the pressing plant. And oh, by the way, we're going to be talking to people at RCA and Decca's pressing plants because we need to get as many copies possible. They also talk to their normal printer and tell them we need copies of a picture sleeve. And the normal printer says, hey, it's Christmas Eve, forget it. Well, basically, it's too late. Well, there's a little company up there called Queen's Litho, and they agree, we'll get it out. And they get the Beatles business because they do this. And they, because they help Capitol out, many of these, in fact, all of the East Coast Capitol picture sleeves are printed by this little company, Queen's Litho, because they bust their butt to make sure that record will have picture sleeves when it comes out. Yeah. It comes out the day after Christmas.
The final weeks of 1963 were spent in preparing another new venture, the Beatles Christmas Show. This was to be a complete entertainment with comedy and songs written around the Beatles, compared by Rolf Harris with supporting acts from the NEMS stable, the foremost, Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas, Tommy Quickly, and another Epstein discovery destined for international stardom, Cilla Black. It was tried out in Bradford, then in Liverpool, and finally opened at the Astoria, Finsbury Park in London. 100,000 people bought tickets before the first curtain rose. The Evening Standard published a special supplement. The caption under a photograph of the Beatles read,
1963 has been their year. An examination of the heart of the nation at this moment would reveal the word Beatles engraved upon it.
Now, let's think about this. The day after Christmas, the kids are playing video games. No, they don't have video games. What are they doing? They're listening to the radio. And WMCA begins playing I Want to Hold Your Hand. And WINS and WABC, the other top 40 stations, soon follow suit. And all of a sudden, kids are hearing this Beatles song in saturation airplay. They also have Christmas and Hanukkah money, and Mommy and Daddy can take them to the record store.
In a few hours, 6 miles away, the chimes of Big Ben would peal out across Britain's capital city, a celebration for a new year and a moment for the Beatles and all those around them to pause for reflection. An amazing 287 live shows, 49 radio appearances and 35 TV appearances, winning the hearts and minds of a nation, including royalty. It all added up to a cultural tsunami that would simply never be repeated by those who worshipped them and those who followed. Brian Epstein, meanwhile, had discovered his true calling in life as a pop impresario and the spiritual fifth Beatle. And John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr, that homespun hierarchy so revered by antiquity, were on the long and winding road to becoming the band, or the act rather, you've known for all these years, and history's most storied band.